Sometimes they are not. Sometimes they never are. And that's okay. Those are one of the things that you really have to come to grips with, come to terms with, and realize that sometimes some poems will never be done. And you'll constantly keep adding to it, going back to it, rereading it, rewriting it. Some poems just won't ever be done, but then some will. Most will. And when you get to the end of that poem and you write and you put that period on the end of that poem and you feel so good at the end of that thing, then you put it together with these other poems and then you go back to that poem that was undone and you start writing with that one again. You know, some poems just will never be done and you just have to be okay with that. There's still some poems, and actually I won't say really my poems, but journals. Some of the poems that I write in my journals, I end up going back to look at and adding to. So we have this one sheet of paper that has writing on all up the sides, all around the corner, all down the end. And then you have like scribble dibble down the side. Then you fold the page because you want people to know, or you want to know that you got stuff on the other side of it. So, you know, some poems aren't done, but guess what? They don't have to be. They're yours. So they're done when you say they're done.
Whew. A wise man would say a poem is never done. A poem is never complete. I mean, we're constantly editing it and getting better in our craft. As I rehearsed, often I'm looking at, I'm reciting a line going, you know what, let's switch this up this way and move this word and change that word. And then as I'm learning and growing in the metaphors and simile and so on, and the different variations of writing, you learn to just kind of twist the line a little bit differently. And this time, oh, it would sound better if I threw that on top of it or compared it to this or use that metaphor. And you're constantly changing. So a poem is never really done, but you must edit your work. You can't just write it down and expect it to be golden. And some may have that gift, but when you go back, you look at a line, you take out certain words, you take a 7-word sentence and make it 3, and it can still have that same power as those 7 words, but you just have to look at it and really choose which words can be done and can be used to really emphasize your point.
That's great. When I feel like I've made my point. So when I'm writing a poem, I usually have an agenda. And so when I've hit my point, like I feel like I've made it, I've done it. And sometimes just revisiting, I'm always like tweaking it. But if I've made the point, like the last line is I said what I want to say, then it's done. Sometimes it's not done. Sometimes I keep coming back to it. I'm like, I don't know if I ever came around to it. And very often I invite feedback. So maybe I'll share something with a small group of friends, with an audience, or even in our poetry circle. Like Tarisha has called me in the past. Tracy will call me and be like, listen to this. Darlene will call and be like, hey, I wrote something. Listen to it. And sometimes someone will let you know, like, no, that's done. Or, you're almost there. Sounds like you're real close, but, so sometimes outside influences. But if I feel like I have made my point, then I'm done. I'm done with it.
How do I know when a poem is finished? Oh my goodness. So my friend Chief said the poem is never done. Not piggyback, huh? For me, how do I know when a poem is actually finished? Like when after the revision and after the editing, and I say, this is it. I said everything I wanted to say about this subject. I pour my whole entire heart and being into what needs to be said. And as a sense of therapy, like as it's therapeutic, like I'm done. I feel a relief, a burden lifted off of me, depending on the subject of the poem that you're writing about. And that's how I know it is done. If it's something where it's challenging, like, all right, there's something missing in this poem, I need to go back and write it. Then you know that poem is not done because there's something there that you recite it, you read it to yourself, like it had that click. And then once it has that click, oh, this is it, I'm good. I feel safe.